to develop you and grow rapidly, efficiently, et cetera. And so we'll talk about some of those nutritional aspects here, but maybe because we hopefully have an understanding of nutrition, but bring in some of the other things like hormones and environment, et cetera, that actually have a big impact on growth performance as well. So that's the intent. And so hopefully we get through this topic today. For your exam, then it's on Untitled. We have nutrition, and what we get through today, in other words, everything's correct. Okay. Format, very similar to what I've had in the past. As far as the paper is concerned, no more pictures, no more slides. It's all going to be a paper-based exam. I don't know how many questions someone in the neighborhood so suggest this more than once you've had in the past. So it seems like you're leading to take this test compared to the previous installment. Anyway, let's get started and talk a little bit about growth results. So several things we want to try to figure out. We want to know what growth is, what security is, what senescence is, what is senescence? Getting old, okay? And so an animal goes through significant changes as they get old. Those are definitely going to affect their ability to not only grow, but reproduce, et cetera. Things we have to do. When it doesn't know what a growth curve is, there's so many factors that impact the growth curve in the shape and steepness. So hopefully we get that done. Looking at what affects growth rate during different phases of an animal's life. And then at the end, we're going to talk about the effects of aging and how that impacts animal growth. So growth is pretty easy to define in just a broad sense. It would be basically some accumulation of weight over a period of time, right? And so that's the way that we're going to look at growth a lot of times from a animal-related, industry-related sense. But in reality, the growth that we're interested in our meeting is really about protein accumulation. It's about muscle accumulation. So as we talk about the accumulation of these different things, we realize that the most difficult to put on weight-wise is muscle and protein, right? The one that comes off the fastest of animals in our body is muscle and protein. In other words, water and fat are somewhat transient in animals, and they come on, they go off faster as an animal pushes them on or metabolize them. So in terms of managing growth from an absolute standpoint, we're interested in the protein growth. So from an experiment standpoint, trying to evaluate the effects of a feed additive or a diet or genetics of an animal, we really try to prove like how much protein is growing. And that's more difficult because we have to do things like limit feed intake, limit water intake to try to get through. Is this really an animal that accumulated muscle, or is this an animal that's just drank 3 gallons of water and is 24 pounds heavier because of it? See? So that water that's spilled, the amount of feed that's spilled in animals, that is something that significantly impacts an animal's value. Okay? As the market animals, the buy and sell animals, is based on weight. And so people can manipulate the weight of an animal they sell by increasing the amount of fill that they have. So, I'm fixing to sell you a pound of steer, feed them and water them, then sell them to you, and they weigh 40 pounds apiece more than if I hadn't just fed them. Okay? So if I'm buying cattle, I wouldn't want to buy full cattle. I want to buy cattle that don't have that artificial weight with feed and water. Because if I'm fixing to pay you $1.40 a pound, I don't want to pay you $1.40 a pound for feed and water. See? I want to pay you for something that's actually going to grow on the carcass. So we do a lot of things in the industry to get to a true reflection of weight of animals. So we shrink animals, for example. And if I'm going to sell you the animals here at my location, you're going to take them to another location to kill them. Do I want to weigh them here, or do I want to weigh them there? Okay? Well, the easy thing is to weigh them low. But the guy that's buying them doesn't want to pay you for that weight. So we can do things like pencil shrink. We say, okay, we weigh the cattle, then I'm going to shrink it 2%, because I know we're going to lose that 2% of fill or feed before you actually slaughter those animals. So we can manipulate weight, we can manipulate value a little bit and compensate stimulation in commercial sense, but true growth, true measure of does this animal actually incorporate that feed and water into muscle, have to get some measure of muscle and try to get past the complications of water, fill, so don't worry too much about that. But it is an important part of really measuring growth rate. So here's a growth curve. And so this growth curve has a shape, okay? And what matter if this there, what it is, this growth curve is saying the S growth curve. Okay? So S, what that red line looks like. So if we're looking at bacterial growth, something like that in the world, we might pick their growth and say linear growth. So linear growth would be like a straight line. Over time, they continue to grow at a constant rate. And nothing really affects that growth, such that, age of the animal doesn't matter, age of the bacteria doesn't matter, it's just still linear growth. That is not what happens in animals. Okay? They have these external and internal influences on their bodies that cause them to grow at different rates throughout their life. So that's what this growth curve is depicting, is sometimes they grow slower, sometimes they grow faster, or they grow out here at the end. They're losing it at the end. That's what makes that depression of that curve at the end. So what I want to show you on this side is a few of the points that cause these things to change. And then we'll come in and talk about what's actually happening. So one of the biggest influences on growth rate is this maturity. And so maturity is related to puberty. And so as an animal matures and they reach puberty, okay, we see a spike in the growth rate. They grow faster around when puberty starts. But what's influencing that? Primarily hormones, okay? And so we know that these hormones that affect reproduction also affect growth rate. So we're going to look at that as a factor. But that's the main one. Causes that animal to project faster growth rate during this puberty age, okay? Or this puberty period. Somewhere out here they level off, okay? When they start to level off is as they're approaching maturity. So that maturity, if you look at it, it's more or less a plateau. They're not gaining, they're not losing, they're maintaining the mass. That's what happens with maturity. We see an animal that does not accumulate tissue to the same degree as it does through the growth period. So maturity is a leveling off. And then the lower part of this S is they're losing weight. Okay? That's one of the things that happens with old age of an animal. They slowly begin to lose weight when they have difficulty maintaining that mature weight. So there's a lot of factors going to old age, and we'll look at that in a minute. The interesting thing is we don't see this in a lot of our farm animals. The reason is we've marketed them, we have moved them from breeding herd, we've told them how to look at it before they get to this point that they've lost a lot of fertility. And so the reason we do that is the cow having a calf. Cow gives less milk, chicken lays less eggs. When it gets to a point productivity wise, then it's not feasible to continue to keep her in the herd producing eggs or milk, etc., because you become less productive. At some point out here, it's different for every operation. It makes more sense to replace her with an animal that is more productive, is more efficient, and lay more eggs. Basically, she goes away and introduces a new young animal with its own marrow and square of her. The companion animals, horses, dogs, cats, people, right? They do this, right? They get out here and they get old. And that's why the old animal takes more to maintain. They're more disease prone, they're less efficient at digesting feed, they have more internal organ issues, they have skeletal issues, they have arthritis. These are all things that accumulate out here as these animals become older. Okay? And for the most part, our food animals, we've told them when they start having these issues, right? You get a lame cow, she hurts the legs, she hurts the hoof, she starts getting arthritis. We don't give her a hip replacement, right? We cull her and we bring in a heifer that doesn't have these soundness issues. But if we have a grandmother, she gets a hip replacement, okay? So there is a significant difference in how we treat or how we look at our meat animals versus companion animals or meat, okay? So that's probably appropriate. Some have different feelings about that. So some will say, yes, I'm going to do chemotherapy on my 14-year-old dog that has cancer, okay? So to me, the dog died when you're euthanizing to get a puppy, but I realize that dogs are more part of some people's families than they are mine. So I don't have a dog, so I don't make that decision. But you see my point. We're really things that don't make economic sense for the companion. Right? And so, if you just look at it from a very hard standpoint, my grandmother's got cancer. Well, she's been dying 2 or 3 years anyway, so we're not going to worry about it. That's not the way we do business. It's not the way we do it. But we do that with cows. Okay? She's old, she's worn out. Okay? And so I just want you to know that there's definitely a difference in the way that animals are perceived, and they go through these points, and they go through these curves based on their functionality of the family. Okay? So the value of this old horse means that we want to keep him out here because he's our friend. I learned to ride him. I did blah, blah, blah. He's worth to keep him around. Now, the old cow, she's not bad. She's a productive unit, and therefore, we make different kinds of decisions on her. So the point is, we spend a lot of money on horses, dogs, cats, and people out here. We don't spend that money on our production animals because we sold them out here before they start costing a lot of money because we'll be lacking efficiency. Okay? There's a lot going on in this curve. I think it's important to understand relative to animals. Okay? Okay, we got to measure growth some way. And there's two basic ways we're going to discuss that we can measure growth. One is going to be the growth of the animal for maybe their life, and the other is going to be measuring the animal for some finite period of time. Okay? So we've got to feed like, and we'll feed them two different diets, two different diets, and see which one is going to cause us to gain the most. Okay? Well, that's a different measurement than if I'm trying to see how much did this steer grow for his life. Okay? And so the common way, the thing that we most commonly use in terms of livestock production would be this term average daily gain. Okay? So we look at it from this standpoint. So W1 is weight when they start, W2 is weight when they end, and then the time, how many days, how many weeks, how many months, whatever the feeding period is. And so in this context, we're going to measure this finite period of time, how much weight did they gain during that time, and mathematically we can calculate what is the average daily gain of that steer. Okay? Started at 1150. Started at 800 when we finished the trial. He weighed 1150 and we fed him for 120 days. So do the math on that. He gained 2.92 pounds for every day that he was in the trial. Doesn't mean they gained 2.2 every day because there's variation in intake, variation in everything. Well, on average, that's what he did. So it allows us to compare animals. It allows us to compare performance of animals on different diets, performance on animals in different environments, performance of animals with different genetics. Okay? And so it's probably clearly the most common way that we take animal performance is to talk about it over a per day basis. If we want to look at the genetics of that animal, okay, in terms of how did he grow for his life, we can maybe depict that as weight per day of it. So it would encompass all of his days, not just the ones he was in that feeding trial. So the same animal, but we're looking at it, and for every day of his life, he gained 2.6. So that means, if we compared that 2.9 to the 2.6, he did better in the feedlot environment, right? Did his genetics change pre-feedlot or during the feedlot? Genetics is the same. So that just means we changed what we fed him. We fed him more, we fed him better, and enabled him to gain more during that period than he had as a young man, quite a bit on grass. Okay? So those are just two ways that we depict growth in our livestock. And by far, weight per day of age would be the most significant. The value of that in our system, the value in that in terms of livestock production is twofold. One is that it gets to market faster. So we can put more cattle through the pens We have less overhead on those cattle, fewer days they're on feed. So anything related to turnover and movement of animals through the system, you want to get them through fast, okay? But there's also some efficiency advantages that we'll see when these animals gain fast. So for the most part, it is advantageous to select genetically for animals that have the ability to grow fast. And then it's usually advantageous to manage them or feed them such that they can grow to that potential. And there are exceptions to that when they grow too fast, et cetera. We'll kind of get to that as we go. No idea. Maybe I'll pay attention better, right? One example here that we got through, particularly the chicken operation, is we have the capability, okay? In other words, we have selected these chickens to grow so fast. We have diets that are so good, we can feed a chicken to grow too fast, okay? And the reason they grow too fast is the muscle grows too fast, the weight on that chicken accumulates too fast, and the skeletal development can't keep up with the weight that we're putting on the chicken. And so in that context, we made skeletal issues on these chickens because there's too much weight pressed down on an immature bone, okay? And so chicken people had to back off. Even though you could get them get this much, it's not feasible. It's not, in terms of the total sense of everything that's happening. We don't want a bunch of crippled, lame chickens, right? And so they had to back off. So now they genetically don't grow quite as fast as they'd like them to. And maybe they don't feed them quite to exceed that. But now they've got an animal that grows, the skeleton grows in concert with the weight and muscle. That animal is able to function, okay? We can scrub horses the same way, okay? We can take a horse, young horse particularly, we can feed them so hard, feed them so much, grow them so fast that they get more weight, their legs don't develop properly, and they get lame decisions in their legs. So that's what you have to be careful of. Is growing those animals that are optimally great, such that you do get the accumulation of mass, but you don't compromise the skeleton. And that can be tricky, okay? I mean, you can feed like cattle too hard, too fast. There's all kinds of examples of things that just because we can get them to grow faster doesn't mean that's in the best interest of the whole animal as it is for a period. So you have to be careful, you have to be conscious of these changes. So let's go back to the horse one time. Young horse that you're pushing too hard, you can mess up the legs, be turning, okay? You can feed a mature horse, 5 to 6 year old gilly, to the same level and not have the same problem. The difference is the skeleton is mature. The calcium, the cartilage is turned to bone. We have a stronger bone mass. When you put more weight on that gilly, it's 5 or 6, it doesn't impact the skeleton. It's because we have a mature skeleton. But those young, healthy skeletons, whether it's chickens or horses or humans, you can mess them up. It's because they're in that phase that they're accumulating bone. So if you don't have your relationships with minerals correct, you don't put too much weight on that animal, you can have these issues. So you do have to be careful whenever you really try to push an animal to grow back, that you don't compromise the system and really cause more issues like you had to. This is a concept called compensatory gain. So what I've got here is 2 growth curves, okay? Animal A growth curve and animal B growth curve. And if you look at that, they both started in the same place. Wait, they both ended it the same way. But what happened in between? Okay, we have a period here where this animal clearly outperformed this animal. In other words, it grew more weight earlier, right? This animal grew slowly, but at some point it got to the same place. The difference in compensation is what happened in here. So you were going faster here, this is going slower here. You have different here, you have different here. What happens is if an animal has restriction during their life of nutrients, they don't grow as fast, right? And so you got a calf, his mother didn't give much milk. So his weaning weight, okay, which we're going to look at in a little bit, and see that his mother's milk impacts his weaning weight significantly, was less than that animal, right? This one had a good mama. And man, she milked like crazy, he grew like crazy. And this one didn't have very good mama. And so he didn't grow very fast. But out here, he got lean, okay? And then he got a good diet. Put it in the feed yard, put it on wheat, put it whatever. Grew like crazy. And ultimately, it reached the same way as the other. So the significance of this is buying and selling these animals, being able to take advantage of this compensatory gain to make a huge difference in the value of what you get. So if you buy an animal here, okay, you get $2 a pound for it. And then you keep him up until you reach the growth from there, then you have accumulated only this much weight over this period of time. By this guy at the same time, see, you sell him up here, then you gain all of this, okay? And so the animal that is experiencing compensatory gain, okay, capturing this rapid gain, he not only gains it faster, but he also gains it less. So they become more efficient, and they also gain faster. And so you can buy those two animals for the same amount of dollars per pound, one is lighter than the other, and then you sold them at the same time, and they weigh the same. Okay, the difference is the calf that you made all the money on gained 90 pounds. The other calf only gained 30. So you got 60 more pounds of growth. You got 60 more pounds of weight to sell because you bought this animal, he experienced or he went through this compensatory gain. So if I'm in the cattle feeding business, or if I'm in the stocker business and I'm putting cattle on wheat, do I want to buy those fat cattle that already gained? We want to buy the one that's healthy, lighter, and leaner. We want to get that cheap gain. And so when you're buying cattle, that's part of the strategy. What is the condition? What is the shape? What is the age? What is the health? Try to buy that animal that's a little behind, a little green, a little bit empty, as long as it's healthy, because you know you're going to get this compensatory gain. So a ton of money is made in how you buy those cattle in the right conditions, how you experience that compensatory gain. So it's a big part of profitability if we can capture compensatory gain. And you don't always have it, but you do have the possibility of having compensatory gain. So depending on what the restriction is, the answer is right. So if it's restricted as a calf, then the guy that buys it and gets the gain policy yearly experiences the compensatory gain. Make sense? But what if you buy a calf that you didn't have a good mama? There wasn't any waste pasture, he didn't get anything to eat during this growing phase, and then he goes to the feedlot. Now the feedlot gets that compensatory gain. So it can happen at 2 or 3 different places. Cow calf guy never benefits from compensatory gain. Okay? Remember, they're always selling based on the weight of that calf off the cow. So where's the compensatory? Born weighing 0 and sell it for what it weighs. There's no advantage. So it's usually going to occur in this yearling phase or the stocker phase, or could be in the feedlot that will make really green. Does the packer who's next year, is he ever getting compensatory gain? No, they've already accumulated this weight. So those are the 2 phases of the industry that can significantly increase profitability by knowing about compensatory gain, trying to buy and produce cattle that can have that extra value that just comes from business life. They put on weight because they don't get nutrition. Now, the cow calf guy does have one place that compensatory gain is great, and that's actually on the cow side. Okay? So you can take an old cow and she gets thin. Calf, she weans a big heavy calf. She didn't eat a whole lot to eat when she gets thin. Her compensatory gain comes back when she finally gets the grass, when she finally gets something to eat. She will actually gain weight faster than if you just an average cow that didn't get nutrition. So there is compensatory gain, but it's on the female. Okay? And that's part of the natural cycle of the cow. As cows, sheep, horses, doesn't matter. As they go through the production year, is there are times they're going to lose a little weight. Then you hope they put weight back on over time because you know they're going to lose weight in another time. And so the cow does actually have a way to benefit from compensatory gain because she's able to put that weight back on less feed if she's been restricted when she compensates, okay? And so, but there's really not, you don't get paid for that. You get paid for the fact that she actually got back in good shape, and now she was able to have another gap in the building and continue to cycle. So regardless if it's the breeding animal or the growing animal, this ability for the body to compensate for restricted periods really helps them be more functional throughout the time. Okay, so let's look at growth kind of more from a cellular standpoint, tissue standpoint, if you will. Look at how natural animals grow. Okay, you realize that basically all cattle are the same size at conception, right? You got an egg. How much variation is there in the size of the egg? From a big steer to a little steer? None, because they're both the same. Okay, so they all start at the same point. So that egg fertilizer starts to divide, starts to replicate cell numbers, then we start to actually grow that animal. Okay, and so the way that an animal grows really only happens two ways. It can happen by getting more cells, okay? And so remember, at conception, that one cell then becomes 2, then 4, then 8, 16, 32, then 64, and then it's time now, so I can't go on from there on, okay? But it does continue for a long time. And then it stops, okay? And it's not always doubling always, okay? But the point is, an animal prenatally, as you're having cell division, as you're having cell replication, they increase their weight, okay, by this hyperplasia, an increase in cell number. But our animals are through with that type of growth when they're born, okay? So you got a calf and he's born, he weighs 60 pounds. And then he's a mature bull and he weighs 2,000 pounds. How did he get the rest of that growth? He didn't add numbers, okay? What he added was he made cells bigger, okay? So that second point, or that second way that we increase the animal size is we increase the cell size. And so prenatally, up to birth, it's a combination of hyperplasia and hypertrophy. But after they're born, they're going to grow only based on hypertrophy. And so when we look at mechanisms or ways or methods that we can cause an animal to grow, right? It's all about increasing cell size. And so if you exercise, do more than exercise, lift weights, you get big arms, big shoulders, and big legs, those muscle cells got bigger, right? And that's why you got 20 pounds heavier. You also maximize your strength in these things. What if you stop working out for a month and a half? Do you maintain that size? No. It goes the other way. You lose weight, you lose muscle mass. Do you lose muscle fiber? No. The muscle cells just shrink. And so this is what we see. A giraffe, they're born with the same number of vertebrae. Well, how does it go from a giraffe that's this tall to a giraffe that's up there? All of the vertebrae of the neck, all of those vertebrae get bigger. They don't add vertebrae. They add size to the vertebrae. They add size to the bone. So that's the way we can influence growth, is we can influence things that increase cell size. Okay? And so that's where your nutrition comes in. That's where your exercise comes in. As an animal fat, they fill fat cells. That's how they accumulate fat. So that's what we're going to focus on as we look at some of these factors to influence growth. Here's a cross section in a rat: 17-day-old rat, 34-day-old rat, 95-day-old rat. Looking at the relative size of fat cells and muscle cells. Okay? So I don't have the weights of these, but 17-day rat are small, got bigger at 34 days. I don't remember the number that was down there, somebody's guessing the weight. But anyway, the point is, that rat got heavier. It didn't increase the cell numbers, it increased the cell size. The cell, bigger than this, the cell bigger than this. So as an animal grows and matures, they change their cell size. That's where they grow. Questions about that? All right. So let's look at these phases of growth. Realize that we are coming up with, we are making up, we are fabricating these periods of growth so that we can explore them and look at differences. So realize, conception till the end of that growth curve, that animal's growth okay? What we're doing in talking about phases of growth, we're going in artificially and saying, all right, let's look at this animal as it grows until it's born. Let's look at it from the time it's born until it's weaned. Let's look at it after it's weaned. We're imposing those because we want to look at differences in growth rate. But the animal doesn't know that these periods exist, okay? So just because this steer is born doesn't mean he says, oh, I'm going to change how I grow. It's a continuous process. It just so happens we're examining it in these different contexts. And so what we've got to be conscious of is we do need to be aware of what's happening in the growth of one phase as it impacts the other, because it does, right? And so we just can't say, I want to steer to grow really fast from the time I wean him until he's grown where I slaughter him, because I need a heavy carcass. We can't just say we want that. Okay? If you want that fast growing steer that has a big heavy carcass, he's got to grow fast until the phase of his life. So there's a correlation between these three phases we're going to discuss, but we can manipulate them somewhat by looking at environmental change. So we'll kind of try to explain what that means. So prenatally, that's the big period that we're interested in. Okay. Number one, management of the female impacts prenatal growth. Okay, so that's why we have awareness. Also, we have to get a live animal out of the female. That's the other big place that we're interested in prenatal growth. If it's too big of a calf, now we have a dead calf. If it's too big of a calf, now we potentially have a dead heifer calf. And so we've got to be conscious of how we can moderate growth prenatally, because we want an average size or less than average size calf comes out, depending on what the size and age of the cow is to be. But we don't want to compromise the growth rate prenatally to the point that it affects it postnatally. And so you have to have some growth prenatally to expect to get acceptable growth postnatally. That's usually the challenge, is to try to get a live animal that has growth potential to really excel after you get him out and start feeding and developing, but he wasn't so big at birth that it compromised his ability to get out. So that's what we're going to look at the prenatal phases. What can we do, or what maybe should we do to significantly impact the prenatal growth? So we're interested in that. We're interested in postnatal growth. We're going to look at that from a weaning standpoint. In other words, the influence of the mother. We're also going to look at postnatal. And a lot of these factors that we're going to look at are the same, right? Like genetics. Well, genetics is going to be important in prenatal growth. It's going to be important in pre-wean growth. It's going to be important in postnatal growth, right? But not all things are going to impact these phases equally. So we want to get a little understanding about that, okay? So let's look at the prenatal phase. I have this listed as a smaller animal, so an animal with less growth. But all you have to do is inverse these and realize these are also things that increase growth rate, okay? So starting off with litter size. This has an effect on the size of the young. So are we typically concerned about litter size in cattle affecting growth rate of the calf? Not usually, okay? But what happens when they have twins? And I can tell you what happens when they have twins. I've not had many twins, but I've had 3 or 4 sets in the last 3 or 4 years. And so I have cows that have a history of single calves. Now they have twins, okay? And those single calves weigh 75, 80 pounds apiece. And then this cow lays down and has twins, and they weigh 45 pounds apiece, or weigh 50 pounds apiece. The genetics is the same. Cows manage, I didn't know so I didn't manage her differently. I didn't do anything different to it. But yet she had a calf that's maybe 2/3 the size of what she has. So the difference is the space, okay? The litter size. And so with cattle, there's that. Sheep, you have singles, twins, triples, quads. As you have more and more lambs, they get smaller and smaller. How about a 2 litter bearing animal like a pig? You know, if she has 6 pigs, guess what? Those 2s are going to probably be big. Okay? If she has 14 pigs, guess what? They're all going to get small. And so it matters. Okay? Litter size, the composition of space, the composition of nutrients, it affects growth rate. So be conscious of it. It's not that you're going when trying to change litter size because you're worried about big pigs. But maybe you don't want to have so many that they're little weak. Can't do everything, see? So, oh yeah, we're just making our pigs have more and more and more pigs. Let's get them up to 25 or 26. How big are those things going to be? They're going to be different so tiny. So this is not, you know, I mean, we have to do it together. And you get more and more and more because it starts to negative impact growth rate, valuable, etc. So there is a balance that you reach on a litter size. And you know what? Machine, it's really 2 or 3. It's not 6 because then you get into a lot of the space growth. So the smaller uterus can have an effect. Who has a small uterus? All animals probably have smaller uterus. Young animals probably have smaller uterus. So if you start looking at some of the things that contribute to growth rate, it's kind of hard to differentiate some of these things because they kind of go together. But if we look at the list of things I'll put together here, they all 3 go together. Okay? So that's a suppression of growth, which is fortunate, right? Because if I have a small, young heifer to grow a big old heavy calf, see? So just the fact that she is small and has less uterine space, she's going to limit the size a little bit. But if you've gone in there and put a calf in there that has an extra % of growth, they're going to be competing against each other. Heifer's trying to keep it small, not small. He's not thinking every day, damn, I want this thing to be little. But physically, she's not, she's restricting the size of the calf. And then the genetics of the calf say, let me go, and he's trying to grow. So the end result is you may get a calf that's really too big for that heifer. She's done everything she can to keep it small, but you put a big old heavy growing calf inside of her, and she can't really move the size. Okay? So those things all kind of go together. So if you want big ones, you know, grow a big female, an older female. Don't put 2 calves in her. Feed her like that. Okay? You can create maximum size because you're then positively affecting the growth rate of that calf. And so we like to think about trying to kind of restrict it, get it manageable, and then maybe we can get it to grow faster once it gets out. So those are all things that do impact them prenatally. And the overlying factor that isn't up here, genetics, right? So you still have to have the genetic propensity to grow, and then these things then allow that development to grow. Okay? If you have a little slow growing animal, genetically, put it in the best environment, you can exceed the genetic potential to grow. But you can take something with the genetic potential to grow, restrict it by putting it in some environments of more litter size or number. When we talk about restricting nutrition, this is a little tricky because a female is designed to produce a live offspring, okay? And that is her priority from a nutrient standpoint when she becomes pregnant. And so that fetus basically acquire the same urgency in her system as her heart, liver, lungs, etc. Okay? So it has a very high priority for survival when she becomes pregnant. So you have to restrict one pretty hard to really reduce the size of that fetus significantly. The other tricky part is that when the restriction occurs has really more to do with restricting prenatal growth than the amount. Okay? So we'll look at a typical growth curve of a fetus here and hopefully understand where that restriction may or may not be effective. So we talk about all pregnancies, whether it be people or cattle or sheep or whatever, trimester. The difference is that we have significant events that are occurring across those 3 periods. So you just take gestation divided by 3, have a trimester, 3 vesper. Okay? So this one happens to be cattle, so a little around the 9-month gestation. The first is real easy, 9 divided by 3. 6, 9. So how much growth occurs here? This is weight, this is length. How much occurs in the first 3 months? Hardly any, right? Well, how much nutrition does it take to grow hardly any? Hardly any. So the point is, that cow restricted the first 3 months. It ain't going to make any difference at all goes bring back catch. Even at 6 months, there's very little accumulation of tissue from the fetus at 6 months. So fortunately, there's no wean calves running here. By the time we wean that calf from the previous lactation standpoint, how we wean the calf, and calf got 3 months, doesn't have fluid enough lactating and cooling feeds. Okay? When you restrict once the bear is here, that's when we restrict that calf size. Not giving enough nutrition here. Draws on the body, draws on fat, draws on the muscle to produce that calf. And now the calf over here is really thin. And then she doesn't lactate, she doesn't feed the crops. So the very fact that these females are meant to survive, function, provide for their fetus, puts them at a disadvantage on the subsequent breeding station. So it's a self-survival thing on their standpoint. That she's thin and hungry when she gets here. Why in the world is she putting more baby in? So she doesn't cycle, she doesn't have an egg, she doesn't ovulate, she doesn't become pregnant. And we told her because she's a sorry old gal who didn't rebreed. The problem is, we didn't feed her such that she could rebreed. So it's that combination, give them enough nutrition here, specifically in the last trimester, that enables them to go ahead and have a decent body condition, such that they can raise that calf, lactate, breed again, and start this thing over. But it happens for a year. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to take care of it for 2 months. That's not. But just as where you could restrict fetal weight or fetal growth is in the last trimester. Here's a study was done years ago looking at the relationship of the size of the dam and the growth potential or the size of the foal. And so what they took is they took the Shire stallion, okay, remember the Shire? Tallest Raptor, that one, little pony, and they made it, okay? Hoping it was artificial, but I didn't know that. So the resulting foals averaged 59 pounds. Okay? Then they did the weighing where they took the Shire mare, they bred it to a Shetland stallion, same genetics, those foals average 106 pounds. Same genetics, different weights. What causes it? Size of the uterus, size of the mama, all of those things impact. Fortunately, because you can have a 59-pound foal, you could not have a 106-pound foal. So that's a very graphic example. The thing that's interesting, look at it, we don't carry this out, but here's the one that is still bigger. When they did carry these foals out to maturity, those little foals never caught up. Okay? So at 4 years of age, mature horse, those ones were significantly smaller than these. And so what happened is you restricted growth rate, restricted the genetics of this foal such that it was that small. You restricted it so that it could survive. But you restricted its growth rate for the rest of the life. Okay? So this is something that happens. Done to them. That was enough restriction. They never grow to the potential that they have today. So this is another reason we don't want to promote these little bitty, scrawny, newborn animals because they are not going to have the growth rate of an animal that is born in these ways, different strength crops. So this is just more or less a verification that you can't expect one to be born a little bitty. In other words, have impacting genetics or impacting factors that make it grow slow prenatally. Just expect to flip the switch when it gets out. It just doesn't work that way. This whole growth curve is tied together. One is related to the other in terms of the genetic development of the animal growth, but how much you restricted it during different phases, depending on how much you restricted it, can have an impact on the rest of its life. Okay? So now we're going to look at some of these things that affect the weaning weight or growth and birth out the weaning. Genetics would be number one. Okay? And the milk is the other factor. Okay? In other words, you have genetics to grow, and you feed that spring, such that they can express milk. Okay? So those are the two biggest factors, genetics, milk produced by the dam. So there's others. So we can compensate that by the reduction of milk production by feeding the calf. Therefore, we're basically enabling that animal to grow to its potential by feeding it. Okay? That calf is going to be grazing next to his mother. So if there is good grass, availability and quality, the calf is going to drink more, eat more of it, and he's going to grow faster with the potential. So we can compensate for this low milk producing cow, if the animal has access to other sources of food. But very often, the cow that doesn't give much milk, if the lady are not with much feed, well, where's the calf? He's going to be at the same pasture setting, he's going to be at the same force availability, so he doesn't grow these kind of compensate for her inadequacy. So here's the genetics. Then we got some other factors. Age of dam. Okay? So dam means mother, for those of you who don't know that. There's a period of an animal's life that's most productive. Okay? That relates to this growth curve, right? And so we will say that there are years of a cow's life as your calf. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years of age. It's because she's mature, because she's maximizing her size, because she's giving more milk, and the resulting calf that she raises is heavier. Okay? A bull calf weighs heavier than a heifer calf. A ram lamb is going to weigh at a heavier weight than a wether lamb. That would be more than a ewe lamb. So the effect of testosterone and estrogen, for example, also affects growth rate and castration. That's a big change of having testosterone or not having testosterone. And then overall diet. So this is one that we can manipulate before the prenatal. Right? We can come in and supplement them. We can choose to only use older cows. So you can manipulate your weaning weights based on environment a whole lot more than manipulate birth weights. Okay? And then the next phase is going to be, well, I guess we talked about these phases. This is perhaps showing you age of cows and the weight of their calves. Okay? So the thing I want you to see is just what the trend is. As these animals are younger, okay, the calves are lighter. As these animals start to get older, after 9, 10 years old, calves start to get lighter. Carry this out, we just keep getting lower and lower. So this is the sweet spot. Okay? This is where we expect those cows to wean the heaviest calves, and somewhere out here you start to make a decision. If that cow's not milking good enough, the calves are getting light, I just as well get a younger cow. So why does she produce less milk? Okay? Multiple effects. Her teeth are getting bad. She can't harvest grass as good. So when we cull cows, mainly we're going to cull them on 3 bases. One is they didn't breed it. That's number 1. And we also go and look at why they didn't breed it, get rid of it. And we look at their teeth and look at their others. And if their teeth are good, they've got good others, we wean the calf. As long as we've got enough forage, enough pasture, that cow stays around. When she starts losing body condition because she doesn't have good teeth, stops breeding because she doesn't have enough body condition, loses the force with her udder because of mastitis or some other physiological thing that a lot of times comes to age, we get rid of it. Okay? This is when they start happening for most cows. Okay? Now, there are some that starts happening back here. Those are the genetics you don't want. You don't want a cow that's born out and worthless when she's 6 years old. She's got to be prime to life. If you look at some families, you look at some genetics, some of them wear out faster. Some breeds wear out faster. When you look at longevity and productivity over time, that's a valuable trait because you get more lifetime production out of those cows. You don't have the costly replacements that you have to bring in on a more frequent basis. It really can impact your overall profitability if you have these animals that live for a long time. So I asked somebody in our Sunday Wednesday Friday class if anybody had a 20-year-old cow. Expecting nobody would. And he did. And I said, is she a pet? He said, no, this is why I haven't told her. And he said, she has a calf here. I said, keep her daughters too, right? Because there's one that whatever it is about her, she can do it. Right? Is she a pet? Does he produce every year? All right, we got two of those. How many get some embryos out of those cows? As long as they're red Angus, I'll take them. So that's cow, okay? And it's the same for sheep. It's the same for everything else. The age is different, but they all follow the same term. Okay? Not as productive as young, not as productive as old. There's a sweet spot. Okay? All right, post-weaning game. Now we're talking about the animal's ability to grow independent of mother, independent of mother. So this is a better reflection of probably the total growth potential of the animal. Is to measure them in that post-weaning period, because that's going to be dependent on them, right? And what you do to them is going to impact them. Still, if you're trying to measure growth potential of an animal, you're going to measure it better after you bring it to a herd mother because they're not dependent on her anymore. A lot of these are going to be the same. Genetics, yes. Feed, yes. Those are the two most important things. What are they eating? How much are they eating? Okay, remember that is allow them to express their genetics. But we got other factors. Big effect of castration, big effect of sex still. Bulls grow faster than steers. Steers grow faster than heifers. Okay, so there's that relationship that's there. We can look at it several different times. Age, okay. What we talked about on the growth curve. That growth curve started to get steep. It was due to puberty. So that is going to affect the growth rate. Young animal is going to grow faster than the old animal because it's related to that puberty event or it's really kind of high levels of the circulating hormone. Climate, big effect. Okay? Remember, in general, most animals are going to do better with a cool, dry climate. It affects intake. Okay, intake affects growth rate. It also affects things like heat dissipation, etc. And so, whenever you're trying to maximize the growth rate of an animal, trying to measure an animal for post-weaning gain, you're going to have better performance, better growth rate, dry environment. And so, we've demonstrated this multiple times with experiments. That if you move animals that are genetically the same, the different locations in the United States that are heat, humidity, altitude, all of these things have an influence. We see significant changes in growth performance. So those are the primary effects. The genetics of feed has the most to do with those gains. So if we standardize the environment, feed them the same thing, we can make pretty good comparisons that this animal is genetically superior to that animal because we fed them the same thing in the same environment. Start jacking with feed differences and location differences to try to make genetic evaluation decisions. Then we're complicated things because that's not easy to manipulate. We can change what looks like apparent growth of an animal by manipulating the diet in the environment. So you gotta have to be careful when you buy cattle or buy sheep, buy hogs, and look at the environment. Because if you go to Florida, you buy something grow like crazy, well, you probably got something because that animal is grown by a bad environment, right? If you go to Canada, you have a little scrawny, no growing sucker. Don't want that either because he's got the best environment he can have and he can do it. Look at that. We see cattle all the time. Move from one environment to a significantly different one, and they produce differently. Okay? And in general, when we look at breeding animals, you can always make an animal south to north and expect them to continue to produce the same thing for bones. But often if you breed cattle from north to south, it hurts them. They're not able to adapt and not able to productive. Yes, so there's definitely some geographical differences that both of those in reproduction. So factors influencing growth is in total external. That would be the environment. Anything outside of the animal, including how they fed. Okay? And then the internal are going to be the things that happen within the animal. And so the internal ones are the ones determined by genetics, right? The external ones are the ones that be imposed on these animals, with where we put them. So I think we've had a decent enough discussion about external. Okay? that hopefully you understand some of those factors, positively or negatively, influence animal growth. We'll look a little deeper on the inside, okay? And so the inside is more complicated because we have multiple factors that impact growth. Okay? It's not a single gene, it's not two, it's not five, it's maybe thousands that impact an animal's growth and growth. It may be something as simple as appetite. So if the steer is willing to eat more feed, he eats more feed, and now he has more calories available to grow. So you have an animal that doesn't have much appetite, doesn't eat the nutrients, he doesn't grow. Okay? So honestly, like fast growing animals, a lot of times like and it's hard to measure appetite either because it's determined by a lot of different factors. So that's why I'm selecting for this is just showing you priorities for nutrients, just to show you preferentially what do animals use nutrients for. They're going to maintain the fetus. Remember the fetus we talked about it being like an organ. The organ generates fetus over here. Then we sustain nerve tissue. Then we sustain bones. Then we sustain muscle. Then what's left is fat. We call priorities for nutrients. That's how it uses nutrients and the body. So that's kind of independent from what we're talking about with the hormones and genetics. So when you talk about an animal has better genetics for growth, well, they grow faster due to genetics. Okay? It covers everything that's happening in the body. Hormone production, insulin production, which is the hormones, but it's not one thing, okay? It's this massive accumulation of things that causes animals to grow faster. They're all by genetics. So it may be just turning on of one gene affects the growth rate. So that's a regulator. It's not really even a gene, it's regulation of the gene. So we see differences in the regulation of genes. Animal has the same genes, but one is regulated differently than the other. Therefore, they express more growth. So it gets really complicated. What I want to do is try to simplify it, talk about these primary hormones that we do understand well and we know impact growth rate. Okay? So first of all, the hormone. This may be the first real explanation or exposure you've had to what a hormone actually is. Just a chemical. Chemical that's produced at a specific plant. Like a lot of them, we find that they're going to be produced in one place, like testosterone, primarily from the intestine. But we do find a little come from the adrenal gland. Okay? But that's about the only place you can get testosterone. Let's look at that leptin. Leptin is from fat. Where's fat? Everywhere. Okay? So even though we say that's one gland, it's a type of gland. So fat actually is an endocrine gland because it produces a hormone. Okay? Just like the testosterone is produced at the testicles. Testicles is very specific as a gland. So you can have one site, and you can have multiple site production of some of these hormones. Anyway, what happens with the hormone? It's produced, released into the bloodstream. And so the bloodstream is what's responsible for carrying that hormone to other cells in the body. It doesn't have a tube, it's not a esophagus, it goes to the mouth and stomach. So it's just dumped in the bloodstream. And so we hope the bloodstream then serves every cell. And if that cell wants that particular chemical, it's going to bind to it. When it binds to it, it's going to take it out of the bloodstream. So the binding of these hormones to the cells is really important. Okay? Once they bind to the cell, there's a couple of mechanisms that actually allows that hormone to have an effect on the nucleus of the cell. It could take that hormone and it could take it through the cell to the nucleus. And that chemical itself went to the nucleus and caused an effect. Or it could bind to the cell, stimulate some other something in the cell to travel to the nucleus. So that's one of the primary differences when you see a peptide effect as compared to the steroid hormone. One is internalized, one is not. Okay? So don't worry about getting to that depth. We're not going to worry about how they bind. They have to bind. And that's the way that you're going to stimulate activity of the cell. So testosterone binds to a muscle cell. causes the muscle cell to do something that enables it to get more nutrients, more protein into that cell. Well, that's dictated by the nutrient. It's not that the hormone necessarily does anything directly, it stimulates the cell. And that's what we see with all these hormones. They're either stimulatory or anti-activity in the cell. And so we're going to have hormones that are coming into play that are causing something. We're going to have hormones coming into play that are against causing something. We have this feedback. We have all these loops and antagonism between them. Because something's got to turn the hormone off at some point, right? You can't just continue to have more and more and more production of all those hormones, because then you really have to screw that down. So you turn it on, some turns it off, some turns it on, some turns it off. And so that's what we're involved with here, relative to trying to manipulate growth or enhance growth, whatever. How can we turn these hormones on, or how can we turn off the ones that don't enable growth? And so this is endocrinology. This is managing the hormone system of an animal to try to get the best of it. And we can do that from a growth standpoint. We can do that from a reproductive standpoint. We can change that animal's physiology based on the knowledge of its hormone. All right, so listing of some of these hormones that are really important in growth. Guess what? Growth hormone is really important in growth. Okay? We call this somatotropin. Somatotropin, growth hormone, same one, just kind of different. We have an anti-growth hormone called somatostatin. And so here we have hormones that can cause growth. We also have hormones that can inhibit growth. There's an example of that conflict. Let's talk about growth hormone now. From the anterior pituitary. Those anterior means front, right? And so we have the pituitary that has two lobes. We have an anterior pituitary and a posterior pituitary. This happens to be the anterior pituitary, which is a little bitty gland in the base of the brain. It releases growth hormone into the bloodstream. So that's important. We can make growth hormone. We can make nearly any of these hormones now by genetic modification of bacteria, which cause them to produce these hormones. That's why we have, you can buy a bottle of estrogen. You can buy a bottle of this, buy a bottle of this. They're not harvested without balance. They're making it with microbes that are genetically able to manufacture. So since we've had the capability to make these hormones synthetically, now we have the ability to use them in animals to change growth rates, okay? Or change reproduction, change ovulation, okay? It's based on the fact that these are readily available due to this technology. So growth hormone is somewhat specific to the species, meaning if you take pig growth hormone, gave it to a steer, it's not going to work the same if you took pig growth hormone and put it in a pig. So even though they're pretty close to the same chemicals, there are some very specific things that change the binding and change the affinity of the cell of the hormone. So that just means if you're going to use human growth hormone, use it on humans. If you're going to use bovine growth hormone, use it on cattle. And so we do know that we have the specificity. But here's what it does. It impacts the cells such that it increases their ability to store protein. It also impacts their ability to store and utilize carbohydrates. So if we look at a muscle cell, and just from a very gross standpoint, to grow a muscle cell, you need the energy to grow the muscle cell, and you need the protein to basically deposit in muscle cells. Make sense? So growth hormone makes the cell better at both of those traits. And so when you feed an animal, they have higher levels of growth hormone, their cells are better able to uptake carbohydrates, they're better able to uptake protein. That's why they grow faster. Okay? So what if I'm taking more nutrients out of the bloodstream and making muscle out of it? I'm taking more protein. What does that do with what's left for fat deficit? Left, right? Because I got this amount of circulating energy. And if a higher percentage of it is taken up by the cells, less is available to be stored back. So this other effect of things like growth hormone, not only do they grow faster, but they grow leaner. They put on more muscle, less fat. So in most cases, this is also a positive relationship. So that's without getting real deep into biochemistry of how growth hormone works. That's what it does. It just helps the cells absorb carbohydrates. It helps them store protein. Therefore, they can put on more cells. You can have too much, you can have not enough. These hormones need to be regulated in terms of nutrient amounts. So, it's like I mentioned earlier, we've got to have some kind of feedback mechanism on most of these hormones. They can cause negative effects just as well as they can cause positive. So one of the things we can do is use this knowledge of growth hormones to enhance production. The place that this is utilized can be utilized both very healthy. So if they make milk, okay, that's basically the same as making muscle. And so the mammary cells are responsive to growth hormone. So you increase the growth hormone in the mammary cells, they make something. Okay? So this is what this technique. There's no growth hormone in the body, no growth hormone supplement. Yeah, cows still make it. The second level is going to be a smaller dosage of exogenous or extra growth hormone, and the top one is going to be okay. And so that's what you see in terms of milk yield over the 5 days. As those cows put more growth hormone, produce more milk. Okay? It all makes sense. And so it works. It is something you could use practically in. There's some outside things that keep us from using it. We'll talk about that on another day. Thyroxine is involved in growth. It basically affects metabolism. So again, I'm looking at too much. Basically, don't manipulate or don't necessarily manipulate thyroxine. More or less, just want to make sure that it is adequate. You might have treated an animal that you had a thyroid that was not functional. You may have to take some out of the thyroid glands that are too hyperactive. So we actually see this in humans a fair amount in human women more than men. The thyroid has issues. I promise you, there's a lot of young women that have sisters and mothers or you that have thyroid issues. And I don't know what the relationship is from male to female, so we don't seem to have nearly as many. You may have to do that. Maybe that relationship with that. Other interaction between hormones. All right, the last thing that we're going to look at are going to be what we call the gonadal hormone. So the hormones produced by the gonad, testicles, ovaries. Okay, obviously testicles on the male side. They basically have the same effect as we look at growth rate. They're stimulatory on growth rate. So if we give testosterone to it here, okay, it's going to grow fast. If we give testosterone to a heifer, it's going to grow fast. If we leave the testosterone on the bull, it's going to grow faster than the steer. Okay? And so testosterone is going to cause, or androgens in general, are going to cause growth. They're going to cause muscle to accumulate, that growth hormone causes. They're going to cause bone to grow faster in relationship to higher levels of testosterone. The tricky part about bone growth is bone growth. Okay? It can grow in length, and it can also grow in circumference. So if we look at the animal in terms of height, okay, just that's an indicator of long bone growth. Femur, arms, all of these bones are called long bones. They have an epiphyseal groove or epiphyseal zone at the end of the shaft of the bone as it goes into the head of the bone. The cartilage, okay? And the way that that bone or length is it converts that cartilage into bone. And so that basically moves the head of that bone further and further out, and that's why the baby is a lot longer than that. So here's what happens to that cartilage. Under the influence of testosterone and estrogen, it replicates faster versus going faster. So the result is, at puberty, around these animals have these elevated levels of testosterone. That you have growth spurts, right? Often you see the little kid, and he's 5'8" tall, he's a freshman, and he comes back after his sophomore year, and he's 5'8", you're 8 inches. Well, he didn't just start eating more, he got testosterone, and so that's why it goes so fast. The other thing about it, though, is that also growth plate for this cartilage stop at an earlier age. And so this is why the steer will continue to grow for a long period of time because that growth plate is not ossified. Whereas a bull will ossify at a younger age and stuff. So we have differential growth rates in terms of height due to castrating versus testosterone. So the steer, if you want to generalize, will grow slower in terms of height, but he will actually grow for a longer period of time and ultimately be taller than the bull. Bull will grow real fast that period of time around puberty, then it stops growing taller because that burn is all ossified to convert to bone. So it's a little tricky relative to bone growth. But relative to muscle growth is the same basic mechanism. It's the same basic thing that we see with growth hormone. It positively impacts protein and carbohydrate cycles. Very rapid. So from here on, let's be on this test. Okay? But we will cover this because it's important once we get done.
All right, thank you.